All right, we're live. Hey, Orianna Herman, thanks for being on the show. Play it forward. And we're going to be talking to you today and gaining from your wisdom and experience about your filmmaking experience. And the last film that you just made was Nowhere Band. You were played it forward by Samantha Shada. And before we dive into questions, is there anything that you'd like to say about the film, yourself? Nothing like, Hollywood-based or schlocky in terms of, we don't need to hear a resume. Just anything you'd like to share.
Yeah, I mean, the film was a great experience overall, and I'm glad that I did it with the people that I did it with, and I certainly didn't do it alone.
Yeah, no, I mean, we definitely get that. It visually looked, excellent. You were the writer and director on it, right?
No, yeah. So I was the co-writer.
Co-writer.
And one of the producers. Actually, I feel like I should have my two teammates with me.
I know what you mean.
Gabriel Bienchitsky was the director and cinematographer and producer as well. And Paul Hapanimi is the writer, and he came up with the concept for the film as well. And then we co-wrote this version of it. And then, yeah, we all produced it together. And so yeah, Paul was one of the producers as well.
Okay, cool. So how many is that, like, total did you guys have on set?
It was just, it was the three of us. Well, I mean, there were other actors in the film, and then Gabriel had, we had Seth Sui doing sound, who's amazing. And then we also had, there was an intern of Gabe's that was helping with the camera work.
That's awesome. So that's like 5 people.
Yeah, it was very small. It was
great.
Very small.
That's awesome. That's, I love to hear that, because as I was, mentioning earlier about Digipops, and what it does is it is building an aesthetic around small crews that are going after a type of filmmaking that's accessible. So, today with the equipment that's out there for people, we don't need to spend $5 grand even on a short film. It's a lot more accessible.
Definitely not. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, yeah, and it looks visually excellent, and it's a really interesting storyline conceptually, and it leads us into the first question, is like, why, from an aesthetic point of view, and as a writer, it's really cool that you're a part of it. Maybe you can explain the theme a little bit, and just before you do, I would like to set it up by, we have these 2 characters, and they are both kind of in this world of confusion, and then they come together on something that's at least known to them. So that said, how would you, convey the theme and aesthetic and emotion of it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much to share or not to share as far as like sharing the plot or giving away.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, go for it. I mean, if you guys make it public, then, we can happily share it if you'd like us to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're still in that process of getting it out there.
Sure.
And honestly, I feel like Paul should be here. Do you do ever 2 people at once? I should have
totally.
I should have brought him in. I didn't. So Paul actually wrote a longer short film that was based off of this concept of what happens if suddenly no one knows that the Beatles existed except for, 1 or 2 people, which is just sort of this crazy concept, which is, how is it that something that is so ubiquitous that everyone knows? It's like suddenly saying that, your cell phones don't exist, or lights don't exist, or paper clips don't exist, but some person's like, wait, I've always used that. Anyway, so that was this is his brainchild, and so that was something that he was really curious with playing with, and gets all the credit for the genius of that thought.
Well, okay, so and since you co-wrote it, you had to step into that space, and it's like, okay, we were saying, well, there's this like almost a platform foundational concept, staples, paper clips, air, food, water, and here we are in a world where that's not confirmed, and somehow these 2 other peoples are on the same page. So I guess, you know, you're playing with like loneliness, isolation, and then, you know, meeting. And I think that's, you know, from a love story perspective, I think that's how people often fall in love. They feel estranged from the world somehow. And then here they are finding themselves together and they understand one another. And that is a platform for love. So it's interesting that you're saying what's maybe not a platform, you know, this alienation, being trapped in your own skin and mind, then all of a sudden the unique nature of what it is you feel or identify with is all of a sudden reaffirmed. And so maybe is that from because this is a love story, right?
Yeah, it turns into that eventually. We feel like there should be like more after this, but it definitely leaves you with the question of what's happening next between these two people, who, you know, reality can sometimes be questioned from all of us, like how you see things and what your perspective is on life is totally different than, you know, mine or, you know, anyone else. And yet we still find each other, and you know, we end up like making connections with people in life that are really profound and validate or invalidate depending on the nature of the relationship, you know, how you see things. So this is kind of an opportunity for these two people when they find each other, to go, okay, well, we are seeing the world in the same way, but nobody else does. So where do we go from here?
Mm-hmm.
And the question of it being a love story, you know, is I mean, it's definitely a potential.
Okay. All right. So it's in the works, it's scratching the surface, but it's not quite um, there yet. So, all right. So, like, in terms of why, again, I mean, from your point of view, why did you commit yourself to this film? I mean, what is the beauty that you saw in it that
Yeah.
made you say, yeah?
So initially, I think it was much simpler than anything other than wanting to make work with good people.
Cool.
So Gabe and I did a music video together. And after we did that, we both realized that we wanted to make some narrative work. That's something that's a passion for both of us. And with that, I thought of Paul. Paul Hapanimi is a tremendous writer. And I thought, well, maybe we could go use one of Paul's scripts and we could shoot some scenes together. It was the goal was much simpler.
Yeah, just get some work out there.
Yeah. So
Cool.
we thought, well, let's just shoot a couple scenes together. That was the initial goal, and that was
That's awesome.
And then I went through Paul's scripts, and we were trying to find something that we could do, obviously, with not a lot of money. You know, locations that could be simple and production design that we could do amidst what we have, you know, access to within our own, you know, environments and resources. So really, it was taking some of his work and kind of going, okay, I could see this, but then also, you know, this concept that he'd come up with, we just felt like I fell in love with it. So, I mean, it was really the brilliance of it and how he wrote it. And then what we did is we decided, because we were just going to initially shoot a couple of scenes, we decided to take the pieces of his longer short and weave them into these two characters. So we kind of expanded on Anna in a way that she wasn't in the film. And then he kind of expanded on Jake in a way that he wasn't in the longer short film, just to kind of make it more about these two characters and their specific meeting. And initially, we were writing two scenes. We were just going to write, you know, very simple, you know, scene or two that we could shoot. And then we decided, well, wait, we could weave this together and make it a short. Like, why keep them separate? And ultimately, the goal was just, it's funny because it was more to just see how we work together. And if we wanted to keep making work together and learn, you know, this was Gabriel's first directorial opportunity. And Paul's written a lot. And, you know, I've done some producing, but this was kind of our first bigger thing together. And we didn't know how we all worked together. But we were curious enough to try, and then you know, once Paul and I worked on these scenes and we found that it all worked together beautifully and could be something really feasible as one concept in a smaller, you know, nutshell than what his concept originally was. We thought, well, let's go for it. Let's try it. And so, you know, sometimes when you start small, you wind up with something a lot bigger.
That's great. That's a great way to start, though. You know, it's something manageable. And
Yeah.
it's something that we promote here in Digipops, too, is a style of filmmaking that starts off with a documentary style. So you have a real live documentary event that you can script around and then you shoot it like a narrative.
Right, right, right.
So, okay, well, you mentioned the word brilliance a couple times, and this really leads us into what? What does the narrative want to say, or what is the narrative saying? What did you resonate from with, I guess, in terms of that brilliance of the story?
Yeah, I mean, what I really resonated with is this questioning of reality, and there being some sort of potential that there's something that I'm experiencing that nobody else is. That
Yeah,
that really hit me, because we all feel like we're all having a very similar experience most of the time. Um, and what happens if, I mean, it kind of felt a little sci-fi in a way,
I'm sure it is.
which I dig. So it's like we took a sci-fi concept and put it into like a romantic comedy.
Yeah. Well, hearing you say that in terms of like this reality that we think we're all sharing and maybe it's not, and just questioning that, and that really being a concept that you really recognize and resonated with. I mean, what it makes me think is how we all look towards one another to validate our own reality. And what if that was taken away?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
And it would be terrifying or exciting depending on your adventurous spirit.
Exactly. And then how is it that we can be the validators of our own reality,
Right.
because is that a strength, or do you become insane? Where are you placed in society if you self-reference your own reality? Are you a guru, saint, or a mystic, or just a confident individual, or do they lock you up? And does it depend on what reality you're validating, I guess?
Well, yeah, exactly. And I think that's where, you see Jake's character played by Paul, having a little bit of like on the verge of a mental breakdown with this concept or
Sure.
understanding that he's come to, that even his sister, who he used to sing Beatles songs with when they were kids, suddenly doesn't remember.
It's erased, yeah.
And so he's really grappling. And then, I mean, how lovely that it happens in such a short amount of time. But in life, that doesn't always happen. But in short films, we get to condense it all. But then he hears someone, singing a Beatles song, and he's suddenly not crazy.
Yeah.
And that moment when you feel in life that you're understood,
Right.
I think it's something that we all seek.
Yeah, it's definitely a beautiful moment. Totally, it is something we all seek. That's cool, and I think it's often the case for art making, where the artist seeks that moment, the audience seeks that moment, and often the audience is elevated to that moment of understanding, self-understanding, when art is great.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, those are the first two questions. Now we're finally in the bonus round, which is, what did you learn? And this could be off the set, on the set, both.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like I learned so much. I wouldn't even know where to start, and I don't want to bore you with all of it, but
No, or please, because a lot of the audience is young filmmakers, or even filmmakers that have more experience. Have to often relearn the things that they've forgotten as beginners. So, please don't worry about it.
yeah. Well, ultimately, one of my favorite things to do, and this is why I love filmmaking and is working with other people, is collaborating. I think that it's such an opportunity to understand communication and understand how to communicate, and understand yourself too, what you bring to the table, what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and then how to, hone them into a way where they can actually like work with other people, and sometimes, you get perspectives that don't match yours, and then why, and then how much do you want to hold on to what you think is right. There's just these personalities. I mean, humans we're all so interesting, and we all, especially when it comes to art, because there's no right or wrong way to do it. So when you get into a collaborative group, where everyone is kind of equally sharing ideas and making decisions together, it can be tricky, and ultimately it's finding people that you can do that with. And yeah, so this was learning communication and learning how to do a lot with a little. I mean, Gabe is incredible. Gabriel Bianchitsky, director and cinematographer and editor. He did so much of it. It's why it looks so beautiful, was his vision. And that, it was really, really neat having a chance to like see these scenes that Paul and I had envisioned, and then bringing them to the screen, and then seeing, and then working together on it. It was very much a collaborative. I don't know. I'm kind of blathering. I'm not even really making.
No, you're not. Totally. I mean, it's a team sport, and I do some software development, and there's this concept called Conway's Law. And basically it states that in any organizational structure and communication structure, when you're working with more than one people, that communication and that organization is replicated in the process that or in the product. So if you've got a strong organization and communication, then that product reflects that.
Yes, absolutely. And I do think, that's partly why we took our time with the editing process, and we would let it sit for a little while. We're all like very busy in our own right. So that, I think that was also a big benefit for us, is collaborating, and then having ideas, sharing thoughts, and then taking a step back, and then coming back to it. So this film, I think, really benefited a little bit from this sort of ebb and flow of our focus, as far as in the editing, in the post-production. So yeah.
Yeah, having some time to reflect on the work before you start editing it.
Yeah,
is great. Yeah.
Exactly. And even in the editing process, you get it to a certain point, and then you feel like it's close, but there's something, I did learn, Paul and I are definitely, we can be a little bit more fine tuning about or a little bit more detailed about certain things. And sometimes that can help, and sometimes it can't, so you really have to make some choices with how meticulous you want to be with certain things, because it could go on forever. You could go on forever, like with all the little, oh, sound here, or this, take here, or maybe what about this one, and but at some point you have to go, wait a minute, this is
yeah.
Let's just let this breathe.
Yeah, perfect can be the enemy of done.
It really can, and yeah, so I think we all balance each other out in that way.
That's cool. So what's next for you guys?
Well, everyone is so busy. I don't know, we shot actually another short in between this one finishing, and released that one right away. We didn't even try to do a festival thing. It was one that Gabe wrote, actually, and it's called Dead End, and that one was Gabe's baby, and he just took it and ran, and Paul and I were in it, and it was just beautiful. And again, another beautiful film, 4 minutes, very short, and so we did that all together. And right now we're just in the process of getting this film out, and Gabe's flying all over the world doing his projects, and Paul and I are here doing our projects. Paul just finished a feature that he's also producing, so we're all kind of juggling different things.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, keep on juggling peacefully, and it was great to have you on the show. Orianna Milne, thank you so much.
Thank
you. And until next time.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and leave us a like and or a comment. It makes a big difference. Play It Forward is brought to you by Digipops, where we're building a community to put film and filmmaker discovery in your hands. Here, filmmakers and fans, the creative class, recognizes each other fairly and transparently through a community-curated film festival each quarter. It's coming soon. Thank you.